Good day, everyone. My name is Shelly M. Cornejo, and today I will be discussing the chapter 23, Last Trip Abroad, 1896. So, chapter 23, Last Trip Abroad, 1896. No longer an exile, Rizal had a pleasant trip from Dapitan to Manila, with delightful stopovers in Dumaguete, Cebu, Iloilo, Capiz, and Romblon. He misses the regular steamer Isla de Luzon, which sailed to Spain the day before he arrived in Manila Bay. While waiting for the next ship for Spain, he was kept as a guest on board the Spanish cruiser Castilla. Meanwhile, on August 26, 1896, Andres Bonifacio and the Katipunan raised the cry of revolution in the hills of Balintawak, a few miles north of Manila. Rizal, worried about the raging hostilities, left for Spain on the steamer Isla de Panay on September 3, 1896. It was his last trip abroad. So, this is Dr. Jose Rizal's pleasant voyage from Dapitan to Manila before his last trip abroad. From Dapitan to Manila, leaving Dapitan at midnight, July 31, 1896, the España with Rizal and party on board sailed northward. At dawn, the next day, Saturday, August 1, it anchored at Dumaguete. So Dumaguete is the capital of Negros Oriental. And the España that is stated, I think, is the name of a ship which Rizal used on his voyage from Dapitan nga to Manila. So, Mr. Rizal has his travel diary wherein every stopovers of his voyage or in everything that he sees during his voyage that he thinks attracts him or may be important to him, he is writing those things. So, Mr. Jose Rizal wrote in his travel diary that Dumaguete spreads out on the beach. There are big houses, some with galvanized iron roofing. Outside are the house of a lady whose name I have forgotten, which is occupied by the government, and another one just begun with many evil posts. So this was his description about the place which he stayed in Dumaguete. In Dumaguete, Rizal visited a friend and former classmate. First that was mentioned that he visited was Mr. Herrera Rigodor, who was the judge of the province. Mr. Rizal also visited his other friends, including the Ferrique and Rufina families. So in the afternoon, he operated on a Spanish captain on the Guardia Civil because, as all we know, Mr. Jose Rizal was a doctor. In Cebu, the España left Dumaguete about 1 p.m. and reached Cebu the following morning. Rizal was fascinated by the entrance to Cebu, which he considered beautiful. As I read this, I searched the word Cebu on the internet, and as I searched and saw the pictures about Cebu, I also got an interest about it. So, super pretty pala talaga ng Cebu. So, back to the topic. Mr. Jose Rizal in Cebu, at the house of Attorney Mateos, he met an old couple whom he had known in Madrid. So, di ba nga, Mr. Rizal went to Madrid and studied medicine there. And maybe during his stay there, he met this old couple. So, if you can still remember, I stated a while ago that Mr. Jose Rizal has a diary. La Cebu. Mr. Rizal wrote in his diary, I did 2 operations of strabotomy, 1 operation in the ears and another of tumor. So, Cebu to Iloilo. In the morning of Monday, August 3, Rizal left Cebu going to Iloilo. So, during Mr. Rizal's voyage from Cebu to Iloilo, he wrote in his diary that the voyage was fine. He also stated that they saw Mactan, which is famous island for what happened to Magellan. So as we recap this topic and history subject, Mr. Ferdinand Magellan was a Portuguese explorer who is credited with masterminding the first expedition to circumnavigate the world, and Mr. Magellan was killed in Mactan, and it is still confusion whether Mr. Lapu-Lapu was really the one who killed him. So who knows? So Mr. Jose Rizal also said that the whole afternoon going to Iloilo was magnificent. They saw many islands along their way, and the next day in the morning, they finally entered Iloilo. Rizal, he went shopping in the city and visited Molo. So as you can see in the picture, that was Iloilo and the Molo Church, which Mr. Rizal has visited. Although the pictures that I get is quite like modern na, but that's the Molo Church. So Mr. Rizal commented, the church is pretty outside and the interior is not bad, considering that it had been painted by a lad. The paintings are mostly copies of biblical scenes by Gustave Doré. So from Iloilo, Mr. Rizal's ship sailed to Capiz. After a brief stopover, it proceeded towards Manila via Romblon. Unfortunately, Mr. Rizal missed his ship going to Spain. The España arrived in Manila Bay early in the morning of Thursday, August 6, 1896. Unfortunately, Rizal was not able to catch the mail ship Isla de Luzon for Spain because it had departed the previous day at 5 p.m. He was greatly disappointed, but he took this unlucky incident with abiding resignation. So even me naman, no, I will also be disappointed because at that time, I think how many days, weeks, or a month that you will wait for the next ship going to Spain once that you miss your expected trip. So as Mr. Rizal misses their ship going to Spain, he wrote a letter to Blumentritt. So Mr. Blumentritt is a friend of Mr. Jose Rizal. So he stated on his letter, unfortunately, I did not catch the mail ship for Spain, and fearing that my stay in Manila for a month might bring me troubles, I made known to the Governor General while remaining on board the ship, which is España Z, of my wish to be isolated from everybody except my family. So I think informing the Governor General is one of his biggest mistakes, and you will know later on why I have said that. Next. Near midnight of the same day, August 6, Rizal was transferred to the Spanish cruiser Castilla by order of Governor General Ramon Blanco. So, Governor General Ramon Blanco is in the picture, as you can see. So, Mr. Rizal was given a good accommodation by the gallant captain, Enrique Santalo, who told him that he was not a prisoner but a guest detained on board in order to avoid difficulties from friends and enemies. So, while waiting for the next ship going to Spain, Mr. Rizal stayed on the cruiser for about a month, from August 6 to September 2, 1896. Pending the availability of a Spain-bound steamer. Next. The outbreak of the Philippine Revolution. So while Mr. Rizal was patiently waiting on the cruiser Castilla for the next steamer to take him to Spain, portentous events occurred presaging the downfall of Spanish power in Asia. On the fateful evening of August 19, 1896, the Katipunan plot to overthrow Spanish rule by means of revolution was discovered by Fray Mariano Hill. So he is an Augustinian cura of Tondo. According to my research, it is said that Teodoro Patiño was the one who disclosed the organization's secrets. It's just because of a petty quarrel between him and Apolonio de la Cruz, and both of them are KKK's members. And it is said that the two had a misunderstanding regarding wages because both of them were also employees of the Diario de Manila. And that De la Cruz also blamed Patiño for the loss of some printing supplies. And as an act of vengeance, Patiño angrily revealed the secrets of the Katipunan to his sister, Honoria, who was a nun at an orphanage in Mandaluyong. So Honoria, being a nun, naturally grew shocked and upset upon finding out that his brother was a part of a rebel group related to the Freemasons, which was the ancient enemy of the Catholic Church. Sor Teresa de Jesus, the mother portress of the orphanage, saw Honoria distraught. Then Honoria told her everything she heard from her brother, and later in the evening, Sor Teresa called Patiño and advised him to tell everything he knew about the Katipunan to Fray Mariano Hill. And Father Hill, in turn, alerted the authorities, and the rest, as they say, is history. So this startling incident struck terror into the hearts of the Spanish officials and residents. If you know or you are familiar about this, it is said that before, when we are under the rule of Spanish official, it is prohibited to have parang kumpulan or like parang pag-uusap-usap ang mga Pilipino because it struck terror for the Spanish nga na baka the Filipinos are planning against them to overthrow them. So that incident produced a hysteria of vindictive retaliation against the Filipino patriots. The tumuli produced by the discovery of the Katipunan plot was aggravated by the cry of Balintawak, which was raised by Bonifacio and his valiant Katipuneros on August 26, 1896. So it is still a confusion for some people whether the first cry really happened in Pugadlawin or Balintawak, but it is already declared, I think, that it happens in Balintawak at the house of Apolonio Samson on August 26, 1896. 9 o'clock in the morning. But I think the most important thing here naman is because of this first cry, it marked the beginning of the Philippine Revolution in 1896, which ultimately led to Philippine independence in 1898. Cry of Balintawak or Pugadlawin. So at sunrise of August 30, the revolutionists led by Bonifacio and Jacinto attacked San Jose near the city of Manila, but they were repulsed with heavy losses. And in some videos that I watched about Mr. Rizal, it is said that during that time nga, he was worried for the revolutionists led by Bonifacio because he knew that they aren't ready yet, and this is a proof of it. When they tried to start the revolution, they were repulsed because of heavy losses. So in the afternoon, after the Battle of San Juan, Governor General Blanco proclaimed a state of war in the first 8 provinces for rising in arms against Spain. So the 8 provinces was Manila, Bulacan, Cavite, Batangas, Laguna, Pampanga, Nueva Ecija, and Tarlac. So Mr. Rizal learned of the eruption of the revolution and the raging battles around Manila through the newspaper he read on the Castilla. He was worried for 2 reasons. First, the violent revolution, which he sincerely believed to be premature and would only cause much suffering and terrible loss of human lives and property that had started. Then number 2 is it would arouse Spanish vengeance against all Filipino patriots. So, as I stated a while ago nga, Mr. Rizal worries about the happenings, and he knew that this will just cause too much or worse towards Filipino people. Next. day before departure for Spain. On August 30, 1896, the day when the state of war was proclaimed in the 8 provinces, Rizal received from Governor-General Blanco 2 letters of introduction for Minister of War and the Minister of Colonies, with a covering letter which absolved him from all blame for the raging revolution. So these are the letters. First, Mr. Jose Rizal, my dear sir, enclosed are 2 letters for the Ministers of War and Colonies, which I think will be well received. I have no doubt that you will justify me because the government by your future behavior, not only for your word of honor, but because the present happening rather must have shown you palpably that certain actions which are the product of foolish ideas yield no other result but hatred, destruction, tears, and blood. May you be happy is the wish of your attentive servant who kisses your hand, Ramon Blanco. So, as you can analyze the letter, you will think that Governor-General Blanco was really a friend of Mr. Jose Rizal, especially in the second letter that I will also read. So, the 2 letters of introduction were identical. The one addressed to General Marcelo de Ascarriaga, Minister of War. So, it was written as follows. Most excellent Marcelo de Ascarriaga, my esteemed general and distinguished friend, I recommended to you with genuine interest Dr. Jose Rizal, who is departing for the peninsula at the disposal of the government, ever desirous of rendering his services as physician to the army in Cuba. His conduct during the 4 years that he was in exile in the Pitan has been exemplary, and he is in my opinion the more worthy of pardon and benevolence, as he is in no way involved either in the criminal attempt that we are lamenting these days or in any conspiracy or secret society that they have been plotting, which this object I have the pleasure to remain your most affectionate friend and colleague who kisses your hand, Ramon Blanco. So, recommending Mr. Jose Rizal to go to Cuba to be a physician seemed very kind of Mr. Governor General Blanco. But if ever that I am Mr. Jose Rizal, I will also trust him. So, on September 2, 1896, the day before Mr. Rizal's departure for Spain, he, on board the Castilla, wrote to his mother. So, this was his letter. My dearest mother, as I promised, I am addressing you a few lines before leaving, to let you know about the condition of my health. I am well, thank God. I am only concerned as to what will happen or shall have happened to you in these days of upheaval and disorder. God will that my old father may not have any indisposition. I shall write to you from the places where the about stops. First, expect to be in Madrid or at least in Barcelona at the end of the month. Do not worry about anything. We are all in the hands of divine providence. Not all those who go to Cuba die, and in the end, one has to die. At least, die doing something good. Take good care of yourself and take care of my old father, so that we shall see each other again. Many regards for my brother, sisters, nephews, and nieces, aunts, etc. I live contented, confident that as long as you are alive, the family will remain united and the old intimacy will reign in it. You two are the bond that unites all of us, with nothing more. My dear mother, I kiss your hand and that of my father with all the affection and love that my heart is capable of giving. Give me your blessing of which I am in much need. a fond embrace for every one of my sister. May they love one another just as I love all of them. Dear son. So, the mother and father of Mr. Jose Rizal raised him very well. So, this letter is a proof of it. And as a son or a daughter like him is not that easy to find nowadays. And even his love for his family, especially towards his mother, father, and siblings, is very evident on this letter. So, at 6 p.m. September 2, Rizal was transferred to the steamer Isla de Panay, which was sailing for Barcelona, Spain. The next morning, September 3, this steamer left Manila Bay, and at last, after how many weeks of him waiting, Mr. Rizal's last trip to Spain began. Among his fellow passengers on board were Don Pedro Rojas. He was a rich Manila Creole industrialist and Mr. Jose Rizal's friend. Together with them was the son of Don Rojas named Periquin. Rizal in Spain. The Isla de Panay arrived at Singapore in the evening of September 7. The following morning, Rizal and other passengers went ashore for sightseeing and shopping for souvenirs. In his travel diary, Mr. Rizal wrote, some changes. I have observed some changes. There are more Chinese merchants and less Indian. I bought a Chinese gown much since I saw it from the first time in 1896. Don Pedro, with his son, disembarked at Singapore. He advised Rizal to stay behind too and take advantage of the protection of the British law. Rizal did not heed his advice. Several Filipino residents of Singapore, headed by Don Manuel Camus or Don Pedro, boarded the steamer, was also urging him to stay in Singapore to save his life. But unfortunately, he also ignored their appeal because he had given his word of honor to Governor General Blanco and he did not like to break it. So Mr. Rizal was not just a hero, no? He was also a good son and a good family member, a good citizen who loves and devotes himself for his country and also a man of his words. And I'm sorry for my mistake. Rizal in Singapore pala dapat to. So, next. So, victim of Spanish duplicity. By refusing to break his word of honor in Singapore, Rizal sealed his own doom. It is because while he is there trusting General Blanco, thinking that he was his friend, but little did he not know is without his knowledge, Governor General Blanco was secretly conspiring with the ministers of war and the colonies or ultramar for his destruction. Great hero and genius that Mr. Rizal was, he proved to be as gullible as Sultan Saide, another victim of Spanish intrigue. For all his wonderful talents, Rizal was after all a mortal man who committed mistakes, and one of his greatest mistakes was to believe that Governor General Blanco was a man of honor and a friend because he allowed him to go as a freeman to Spain to become a physician surgeon of the Spanish army in Cuba, where a bloody revolution was raging, and gave him 2 nice letters of introduction addressed to the Spanish ministers of war and colonies. The truth of the matter, as now substantiated by the declassified documents in the ministries of war and the colonies, was that Blanco was his implacable foe who regarded him as a dangerous Filipino, who was responsible for the raging Philippine Revolution and therefore plotted his doom. Rizal was unaware that since his departure from Manila Bay on his way to Spain, Blanco and the Minister of War and the colonies were exchanging coded telegrams and confidential messages for his arrest upon reaching Barcelona, and that he was a deportee and was being secretly kept under surveillance. So Rizal arrested before reaching Barcelona. The Isla de Panay with Rizal on board left Singapore at 1 p.m. September 8, unaware of the Spanish duplicity, particularly of Governor General Blanco's infernal deceit, he happily continued his voyage towards Barcelona. On September 25, he saw the steamer Isla de Luzon leaving the Suez Canal crammed with Spanish troops. 2 days later, Sunday, September 27, he heard from the from the passengers that a telegram arrived from Manila reporting the execution of Francisco Rojas, Genato, and Osorio. On September 28, a day after the steamer had left Port Said, Mediterranean terminus of the Suez Canal, a passenger told Rizal that the bad news that he would be arrested by order of Governor General Blanco and would be sent to prison in Ceuta. It is Spanish Morocco opposite Gibraltar. So, shocked by the alarming news, Mr. Rizal belatedly realized that he was duped by the unscrupulous Spanish officials, particularly the sly Governor General Blanco, whom he thought was his friend. With an agonizing heart, he immediately wrote a letter to his friend Blumentritt, and burning his disgust and bitterness. Sarap mapakanta ng You Betrayed Me. Charot. So, with an agonizing heart nga, he immediately wrote a letter to his friend Blumentritt. This is the letter. SS Isla de Panay, Mediterranean, September 28, 1896. My dear friend, a passenger on board has just told me a news that I can hardly believe, and should it be true, would bring to an end the prestige of the Philippine authorities. I cannot believe, for it would be the greatest injustice and the most abominable infamy, unworthy not of a military official but of the last bandit. I have offered to serve as a physician, risking life, the hazards of war, and abandoning all my business. I'm innocent, and now, in reward, they are sending me to prison. I cannot believe it. This is infamous, but if it turns out to be true, as everyone assures me, I am communicating to you this news, so that you may appraise my situation. Yours, signed, Jose Rizal. So, grabe yung ginawa sa kanya, no? How hurtful it is to be betrayed, and he is innocent and a good person, and the thing that makes it more hurtful is the fact that the one who you thought was your friend was the one who betrayed you, and the person he think was with him throughout his battle is the one who betrayed him pa nga. So there was nothing official yet about his impending arrest. It was still merely shipboard gossip. On September 29, Rizal wrote in his travel diary, "There are people on board who do nothing but slander me and bend fanciful stories about me." He said, I am going to become a legendary personage, at hindi nga siya nagkamali. So next. The following day, September 30, at 4 p.m., he was officially notified by Captain Alemany that he should stay in his cabin until further orders from Manila. He graciously complied with the captain's directive. Arrival in Barcelona as a prisoner about 6:25 p.m., September 30. The steamer anchored at Malta. Being confined to his cabin, Rizal was not able to visit the famous island fortress at the Christian Crusaders. I saw through a tiny window, he wrote in his diary, the beautiful view of the Port Malta Sea, with its monumental and magnificent castle and three levels, illuminated by the lingering afternoon lights. On October 3, at 10 o'clock in the morning, the Isla de Panay arrived in Barcelona, with Rizal a prisoner on board. The trip from Manila to Barcelona lasted exactly 30 days. He was kept under heavy guard in his cabin for 3 days. His jailer was no longer the ship captain but the military commander of Barcelona, who happened to be General Eulogio Despugol, the same one who ordered his banishment to the Pitan in July 1892. And it was one of those coincidences in the lives of men that make history stranger than fiction. On his second day in Barcelona, Rizal, although held incognito in his cabin, noticed the city's celebration of the feast of Saint Francis of Assisi. He recorded it in his diary as follows: At 6 in the morning, many cannon shots awakened us. It seems that they are in honor of the feast of Saint Francis of Assisi. At 12 o'clock, I counted as many as 31 cannon shots, and 6 p.m. there were again as many. At night, there was a concert in the dining room which can be heard from my cabin. At 3 a.m. on October 6, Rizal was awakened by the guards and escorted him to the grim and infamous prison fortress named Montjuich. He spent the whole morning in a cell. About 2 in the afternoon, he was taken out of a prison by the guards and brought him to the headquarters of General Despungol. In the interview, which lasted a quarter of an hour, the brusque general told Rizal that he would be shipped back to Manila on board the transport ship Colon, which was leaving that evening. After the interview, Rizal was taken abroad the Colon, which was full of soldiers and officers, and at 8 p.m. October 6, the ship left Barcelona with Rizal on board. So, thank you for listening. And if you have any questions, these are my social media accounts and these are my references.